Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, your resource for all things business, brand, and leadership. We are excited you have decided to join us today.
Good morning. Welcome to the Elevate Podcast. I'm Robert Kaelin.
Mike Newman here with you. Great to be with you again this week. We've been, last week we were talking about workforce development types of things, and I think we kind of continue with that this week. Robert, what's our title today?
So it's really a question, which is, are you working yourself out of a job? And I propose that to our listeners out there. Are you working yourself out of a job?
So immediately my gut response is, why would I?
Yeah.
Why would I want to do that? And here's what I would say in response to that is the position that you hold doesn't make you the leader. It's the leader that makes the position.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to us today and you're a leader of a department, or you're, have some leadership responsibility in that inside of the business, or you're the business owner, what are you doing to develop the bench that sits below you? And again, because I used to be a baseball coach and a football coach, I think a lot about the bench, because if somebody goes down, if somebody gets hurt, who's going to come in and take that place? We don't always think about that in our business because we don't think people are going to leave, which is maybe works well for everybody, but places I've been, all of a sudden, somebody gives their 2 weeks notice because their husband got transferred to Chicago, or somebody gives their 2 weeks notice because there's other people out there looking for great talent. So why would I want to develop the people under me if, someday they're going to get so good that they're going to leave?
Yeah. And I think also with that, Mike, not only do business owners and leaders feel like people aren't going to leave, I think there's limited resources. Like, how do we double up? How do we make sure that there is coverage if someone's sick? Who knows how to do this? We can't train everybody in everything, and so we get stuck in our own minds. I think a lot of times with the reality is there should always be someone that we're developing to come right behind us and fill our spot.
Yeah, so you take a small organization, you've got 10 or less employees, but you're still generating great revenue and making a good income. But then one of your key revenue producers, has to have surgery. What do? Do you miss out on that for a period of time and limp through it?
Heart attack.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen. So when we talk about working ourselves out of a job, I think that we have to shift our mind just a little bit. I had people say this to me before, and then when I supervise a lot and would have this thought, why would I want to do that? I mean, I don't want them to leave. And I said, well, you're not happy with where they are right now. Do you want to have them stay here for the next 10 years or the rest of your career and be griping about them because you haven't developed them, like we were talking about in a prior episode? Or would you rather have them developed so well that they're able to leave, but taking care of them well enough that they never want to?
Love that Richard Branson quote right there.
There you go. That's where that quote came from. I knew it wasn't a Mike Newman original, but and so when we talk about working yourself out of a job, it's about how do you strategically develop your replacement. So I'll tell you this quick story. And a number of years ago, when I knew I was going to be stepping away in the next 5-year window from what I was doing, I said, I got to figure out who can replace me. And so I had a lot of interns at the time. Not that they were, I shouldn't say a lot of interns at the time. Over a period of time, I had a lot of interns. And I would present to all of them the opportunity to go with me to something, to attend something, to be in charge of a particular committee. Okay. And what was I doing at that time? I was looking for willing learners.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wanted. Before, Robert, you had talked about, I think on the last podcast, of what you were always looking for in a potential person that you're going to develop in over time. I always said that if I have a learner and they have a desire to actually learn, they'll be able to figure it out. And where did that
Mm-hmm.
come from? It came from me, because when I took almost every single position that I was selected for, I wasn't selected because I had outstanding skills in it. It was because I learned how to do things over time. It was an attitude that I brought that I'll figure it out. As Marie Forleo likes to say, everything's figure outable. And, and so you can figure it out, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to be in the environment where it's okay to figure that out.
Yeah. And I kind of think about this in two ways. One is what you were just talking about, which is like succession planning,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I guess all of it kind of is succession planning. But what if you're not wanting to get out of your job? What if you have a small business and I guess the second way I would look at this is, if you want your business to grow, you have to be able to fill those pieces in so that people can fit in there and help you get out of
Mm-hmm.
all the other day-to-day things that you're doing so that your company can grow. And I think some of the things that stifle being able to work yourself out of a job is maybe your vision might be too small.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, and with that, when we talk about scaling a business, it's not that you can just one day say, oh, we're opening up a new office over here, or we'll open up a second franchise over here, or whatever it is. There has to be a lot of thinking and planning and developing along the way. And if you're not developing the people in parallel with your plan, who's going to fill that?
Yep.
And we've talked a little bit about culture. We've talked about fit. We've talked about these types of things before. But if you have someone in your organization that has the interest, that is a learner, that you see as somebody that can potentially take over, that's where you want to invest your time in developing them so that you can work yourself out of the job. They take what you're doing now and you move on to the next opportunity that's there. So whether it's a second office or a second place, that's one way to do it. Another way that you can do it is that you develop and train them so well that you can place them there and they're going to replicate what you have because they do what you've taught them how to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of, I think, working somebody out of a job is, and to do that, you got to change your mindset a little bit. We can get very protective of, this is my show. This is what I'm doing. Nobody should be challenging me. And if I help somebody along the way, but I think when you ask yourself this question, what am I doing right now that somebody else could do?
Mm.
That frees up your thinking to say, oh, I could tell you things I've been doing today. I had to run to the bank. Well, if I had other people with me, I would have sent somebody to the bank.
Right.
But instead, probably when I came and went and all that, it was probably a 20-minute time out from what I was doing. Now, I needed to have money in the bank. I needed to deposit those checks, but there's better ways to do it. And those of you that are more technologically advanced, like my sons are, Dad, why don't you just take a picture of the back or take a picture? And I just
deposit it on your app.
Haven't been able to figure that out with a high level of confidence that it actually gets there.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what am I doing right now that somebody else could do? And then the second question is, why am I even doing that task? Okay, why am I doing that? And I probably, now that I've said this out loud, I'll probably start and figure out the app that you just said, Robert, that I don't have to go to the bank anymore. So, but that's the second way to look at this is, what are the tasks that I'm doing that are eating up a bunch of time that somebody else could do? And if I tell them why I want to have them do that task so they can learn, so that they can someday run this office or run this building or, whatever it is, that's a lot different than going, hey, can you just run to the bank for me?
And you know what? Let me say this, because I have struggled with this in the past. And I think I figured out that I had fear in me that I didn't like certain tasks that I was doing. I didn't want to burden with other people because they were a frustration for me. And so when I would give them to someone else, it was almost like you're giving them all the stupid tasks that you don't like. And so I felt burdened. I didn't want to burden them with that. And then I realized I had an epiphany one day of like, you know what? The thing that frustrates me the most is something someone else loves the most. And I'm taking an opportunity for them or taking an opportunity from them to be able to do the thing they love by holding it, you know? And it was all inside me.
That fits right into a lot of things we do with DISC and the Working Genius and all of that. There are things that are frustrations for us, are working frustrations that other people have a genius in that, and they get joy and energy out of doing that.
Yeah.
And so recognizing that and then having a conversation with somebody about what it is that they're doing. You know, the second thing I think that we have to think about when we're working ourselves out of a job with this title, do you really want to work yourself out of a job, is about, we want to develop people as our first priority, not having the position.
And you're funny. It's funny that you just said that. So we haven't planned this or anything, you guys, but I was literally just about to say, it really comes down to knowing your people, right? Like if I know that someone is wired different than me, I'm going to give them the tasks that fit with them. You know, I'm not going to give them tasks that are outside of their where they're wired best and where they fit best, right? And that's a frustration for them. I think knowing the people that are on our teams really well, so well that we can help equip them with the tasks that they, you know, will thrive in is really important.
And not only is it important that they thrive in that, but that's where we tie this back to the kind of the workforce development part of things and the type of workforce that we have. If somebody loves that type of work, let them do it.
Yeah.
You know, one of the principles that I used to try and get people to do was, if somebody can do a job or a task 80% of as well as you can, they're probably going to far exceed what you can do with that if you give it to them. Because you probably started that task, if you were like me, and you had to learn it, you started that task, you're maybe at 20 or 30% competency when now you're at 100. And in some of the roles that I served in the past, and the most recent one that I served in a large organization, there were tasks that I did and I learned how to do because it was necessary for me to understand. But at a certain point, understanding is all I needed. I didn't need to do that task anymore. I just needed to know what was behind it.
Yeah, that's good. And I think also, you know, you had proposed the question of what am I doing right now that I can give away? But we also need to ask ourselves, what am I doing right now that I can't give away? That only I can do, that only I can focus on. Those need to be the things that I'm working toward. Right? As I'm working myself out of a job, I'm working toward those things that only I can do. There was a quote that came out of the book, 10X is easier than 2X, that jumped out at me, which I'll read to you really quick because it's about the 80-20 principle. And, you know, if you focus on the top 2 or top 20%, you're going to get 80% of your results. It says this, it's from Richard Koch. He says, the road to hell is paved with the pursuit of volume. Volume leads to marginal products, marginal customers, and greatly increased managerial complexity. Hard work leads to low returns. Insight and doing what we want leads to high returns. Strive for excellence in few things rather than good performance in many. It is not a shortage of time that should worry us, but the tendency for the majority of time to be spent on low-quality ways. The 80-20 principle says that if we doubled our time on the top 20% of activities, we could do a 2-day work week and achieve 60% more than now. And if we focus on the things that only we can do, and we were only focused on that. We were able to work ourselves out of the other job that we had, that people were focusing on that, we would actually be more productive. It seems counterintuitive for us to work ourselves out of a job. But the reality is, and the data proves, that it actually becomes more productive, surprisingly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's really what you're talking about, Robert, is really about how do we move forward? And part of it's a change in mindset. But imagine what you could do if I heard your data right, that you could get more done in 2 days a week than you did in a full week of doing all the rest of the stuff. What could you do in those other 3 days? And I work with as a coach with business owners, and time is always being the robber of things.
Yep.
So we've heard this statement probably before, that good is the enemy of great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a lot of good things, but that's keeping you from doing great things.
Yeah.
And so you have to sit down, you have to think about it. Robert and I'd be happy to sit down with you, individually, give us a call, shout out, and talk with us about, some of the challenges that you see. Because when you're starting out, you're right. I mean, there was a recent podcast that Ed Milet did, and I just forgot the guy's name, but was about how difficult it is as an entrepreneur to get started,
Mm-hmm.
and to generate profit. And this is the guy that, has multiple billion-dollar or million-dollar businesses and all of these things. And he said the first 10 years were the hardest years of his life. And you look at others and they say, well, here's the simple things you need to do and everything's right. Realize it's going to be hard to work yourself out of a job.
Yes.
But when you can focus on those things, think of the thing, like we've probably all been to a Christmas Eve service with a candle lighting thing that goes on. Maybe not everybody, but, in our church, the Christmas Eve service starts with somebody going to the Advent, or ends with somebody going to the Advent candle, and lighting their candle. See if I can get all these C words together. Lighting their candle, and then they light 5 other people on the platform, and those 4 or 5 go out and light the other candles, and we pass that light along to the person next to us, and pretty soon the whole dark room is lit. Why? Yeah. Because one person lit somebody else's candle. And so when we want to, create that priority on developing the other people, we're lighting another person's candle. And we can bring more light to our organization, and we can have a lighter load when we have other people who are sharing the light with us. And
I love that. That's such a good illustration. I mean, I was literally just picturing it in my mind as it was going, and thinking about, if we work ourselves out of a job, if we light someone else's candle, how much better will our organization be because of it? How much better would our legacy be because of it? How much better is our world going to be because of it? If we light someone else's candle, it also models the way for them to light other people's candles. And so I think that that's a perfect ending to this. Like, whose candle are you going to light today?
Yeah. And that's how you work yourself out of a job, by lighting candles.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, you guys, this has been a great episode. Again, like Mike said, if you want to reach out to us, shoot us a comment, shoot us an email. We would love to connect with you. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast, to be able to add value to you every single week. And Mike, what an honor to be here with you. Thanks for lighting my candle.
Hey, you're welcome. Likewise.
All right.
Yeah.
You guys have a great week. We'll see you next time. Take care and God bless.
Thank you for joining us. Our hope is this episode has been helpful for you today. If it's impacted you in some way, we encourage you to share it with someone. To receive a direct notification of our next episode, click the follow button on your favorite app or platform. You can also watch each episode on YouTube. The links are in the description. If you want to connect with us on a deeper level, go to countercultureleadership.com/resources. We'll see you next week on the Elevate Podcast.